So, folks, we're again back at Barone Studios down in Bellport, and we're here today. For me, this is like, how do I say this? This is exciting. And the reason why is that as a history teacher for 30 years, I try to do things chronologically when we teach history. And the first thing I learned about a podcast, you can't do it that way. Like you have to be able to strike the iron when it's hot. So what do I mean by this? You know, I have this vision in my head of doing this podcast, and I laid it out all on paper. And one of the first things that I wanted to really do was to introduce oystering and the oyster historically prior to Europeans coming here, right? And the Europeans as we know it. And I always said that I had to reach out to the Shinnecock Indians, and I spent some time trying to get a hold of people. And it's a funny story because all of a sudden, I'm at a store in Patchogue and somebody says, you know what, get in the car and drive. I couldn't reach anybody in the car. I'm sitting there and I don't know, in my head, it says, go out to the Shinnecock Indian Reservation. And I'm like, you know what? I got nothing to do. I'm going to drive out to the Shinnecock Indian Reservation. My goal was to get a name and phone number, somebody I could talk to directly. So I drive all the way out to Shinnecock. When you get out there, I turn past Stony Brook College. I make a left. There's a handful of smoke shops out there and stores and things like that, convenience shops. So I walk. Why? I drive into the first one. And I think I turn into it. I turn in, I get out. There's a nice gentleman behind the counter. He was trying to find out what he can do to help me. And I explained that my name is Ralph Ficciano. I'm from the Long Island Shucking Truck. And I just want to speak to an elder, a historian, somebody that can give me a little bit of history on how the Shinnecock Indians on the reservation harvested oysters 600 years ago, 1,000 years ago. They're the indigenous people of Long Island. So the guy goes, stop right there. He goes, you want to talk to the guy over around the corner. So lo and behold, I see a gentleman sitting at a desk. He's talking to another gentleman. I have it all screwed up because I think I'm waiting for the guy behind the desk. And I end up talking to a lady who works there. And she's like, just interrupt him. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, no. Like, you know, this is an honor for me. Like this is big time, right? This is what I wanted. This is where I want to start everything. This is the point that I need in order to continue to move forward in my chronological history teacher brain. So she calls for John Smith, and this gentleman comes over and we start talking. And it's almost like it was meant to happen, guys. Like you know, John would tell you it's the spirits working. You could say it's God, Jesus, fate, the Anunnaki. I don't care who you want to talk about, but all of a sudden he sits back and he's feeling me out. I'm feeling him out. And he goes, you know, I ran the Shinnecock Oyster Farm. And I'm going, right then and there, I stop. I go, how the hell does this happen? Like, I just get an idea to ride out here. I don't know what shop I walk into. I walk in here and here's a guy that's an oyster farmer. Like, this is too good to be true. Well, let me tell you, I was humbled and I was honored that I was invited onto the reservation. John Smith invited me to his home. He walked me around the remnants of his oyster farm. And then what seemed like an hour turned into four and a half hours of talking about anything and everything. It was just... It really was. It was a remarkable part of a journey that I've had. Now, when I say this, I've met a handful of people historically that have impressed me. One young lady would have been Kim Fook. You might have known her as a young lady who ran down the streets after her village was bombed with napalm, and she was running down naked with the skin. And I had the opportunity to meet her, an impressive woman. I met Minnie Tricky Brown and Ernest Green. Now, you guys might not know who they are, but they were probably two people that taught me more about human beings with Kim. They are two of the Little Rock Nine. I had conversations with them, I had pictures with them. They taught me about discrimination and race and humanity. More importantly, they taught me about humanity, how we need to grow forward. And in my eyes, those people really developed and made me the history teacher I am. And then I'm sitting back thinking of my conversation nonstop, almost every waking moment that I had with John Smith. And I go, I can't believe that this gentleman agreed to come here to represent his reservation, his people on this podcast. And to me, this is it. I reached the pinnacle in podcast 4. So today, Mr. Smith, John, as I call him, has agreed to come onto this podcast. And to me, this is probably no bigger honor than this is it. This is my biggest honor, privilege that I've ever had in my life of teaching history. And I brought John on today to really talk about the origins of oystering. And as we just said it, wherever the spirits take us. Wherever the spirits take us. So John, thank you so much for being here. I don't even know if I did an introduction worthy of you, but I hope you realize that this means so much for me.
Well, I'm honored and humbled for that. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So John, the first thing is how? You know, I've seen modern day farming and I've seen all different types of machines, but how did your ancestors really pursue the art of oystering? And like, what was that process like? Like, I couldn't imagine not a house out there, not just the silence, the beauty of it. And
I often think of that too.
And so please share some of the stories that you might have about the early as you would call it, first contact, the first contact meaning Europeans arriving. Mm-hmm. Can you share a little bit about that with us, please?
So before first contact with the oyster, and how our people would work is with nature. So you are part of it. So with oysters, you have a natural spawn that happens and a time of year and a temperature of water when that happens. Now, what they used to do is get branches from trees, and what they would do is they would take them out into the water, the deep parts of water, and lay the branches out there. And in the time of the spawning time of oysters, the oysters would attach to the branches. And then they would grab those branches and then bring them closer into shore. And that's kind of like the extent of their cultivating. They bring it into shallower water where it was easy for.
Could you recognize the depth when they first laid the branches to how deep they brought them?
That I don't know, because
well, the bay changed.
Yeah, so it's 800 years ago. So but like some of the equipment that was used, like today, you might see pictures of those long oyster tongs, these long wooden things when you're in deep water that's a Native American tool.
The oyster
tongs, yeah.
Now, I believe it or not, I would not have known that. And I remember my grandfather, they look like, how do I say this? These metal, kind of like they had almost like a metal screen, right? Like they were big on both sides, and they looked just like you would pick up something at tong and but you had to be strong as hell because you had to pick these up. You have to drop them. I remember my grandfather doing it. And just so you know, we didn't have oysters that night. So my grandfather was not very good at it. But he dropped these things open and he would rake them and he'd rake them and he'd rake them and he'd rake them. And then he'd try to pull things up. And at that time, I think we caught 3 Schlitz cans, 1 Schaefer can, and a Bud bottle. But, it really is. So I didn't know that was an Indian invention. So that's what they used.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, I do know that the water temperature spawning is about 68 to 70 degrees. So it depends on when that really happens.
Right.
And that really requires, I wonder how they would recognize that temperature. Like,
probably, I would imagine just by the feel when you walk in the water. It's like when you walk in the water, like in the bay, you can tell the temperature. Sometimes it feels like bath water.
Yeah.
And when it's like bath water, the spawn it's happening then.
It's on.
It's on 78 degrees, 76, you can feel it's like bath water. So
Yeah, that would be interesting.
yeah,
And then they would just bring them in, and then they would
Mhm.
harvest them from there.
yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Now, once they took them in, what was the common way to cook the oyster? They didn't eat them raw, right?
Yeah. All kinds of ways. Like today, we know the clam bake, where you dig a hole and then you make a fire and then you heat big rocks and then you put seaweed on top of the rocks, creating steam, and you can put everything on there: fish, clams, oysters, anything you can think of. Lobster, you put it on there.
And you just
Cover it with seaweed.
wet seaweed, and that's
Yeah,
it.
and then dump water on there again, create the steam, and that's one way of cooking. The other, they could use an arrowhead and to the back of the hinge, and pop it open.
They really did.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
One of the things, and today we wouldn't think of it, of how it would be. But traveling back then and trading, it's common for them to get in their dugout or just take that walk and go west to Manhattan and trade, because Hudson River was there. Well, that's, and tribes from upstate, 6 nations, they were coming down to trade furs. That was fur country up there.
So you would trade oysters. Well, New York City was big with
what
oysters.
we traded was Shinnecock. Believe it or not, what it is, the clam that we eat here on Long Island, the quahog, and when you open it, right, you get that. There's a purple part of the clam that you see. That purple part,
Yeah.
that's wampum. That's what we call wampum.
And you would trade the wampum.
Right, we would make beads out of that, and then we'll use the whelk shell to get the white beads. So with the wampum, and now some of the clams, depending on where they were growing, it determined how dark that purple was, because that clam, it could be so deep purple that it was black.
Would the deeper the purple increase in value?
Value, yes. Even today, because we still make wampum.
You do.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we still make wampum. Like, to make a wampum bead, to make a strand of 60 wampum beads, we sell that thing for like $200.
Really?
Because it takes a long time to make one bead. And not every clamshell makes a bead. It has to be a certain thickness, because when you're cutting it, it can shatter in an instant. I mean, I've gotten to where, I cut it and I get it and I'm shaping it, or I'll put it in a tumbler. And then when I'm making that hole,
The whole thing breaks.
all breaks. It's like, oh man.
All that work.
All that
guess
work
what? It
is-
just went in the garbage.
Yeah.
And now I'm sure you use modern tools, but
Yeah.
how did they drill the holes? What did
They had drills, but the drills they used was a hand drill with sinew.
the old school?
Old school. I can only imagine how it was. And I'm thinking like making it round using another stone, like rolling it.
Really?
Yeah, to make it make
get
it
the
round.
round shape.
Yeah.
So you would carve it down to almost like, and then you would almost use it as a file.
that's it. That's this. And the other thing that we don't think about, the quahog, that clam, that purple part only exists on Long Island. And
Nowhere else?
And parts of Jersey, a little bit in Connecticut, Massachusetts,
Right.
but not the deep purple. And it's not as common. It's common, but not as common as it is on Long Island.
Wow.
So, I mean, during the time that our tribe had our hatchery, our oyster hatchery, oyster and clam, back in the 70s, some people were trying to take the clam into Texas and California and growing it with the purple, but it would turn to white when they got it out there.
Because the water and the mineral deposits.
The mineral
are the-
deposits weren't
Because
it only exists on Long Island. I think it has to do with the glacier.
I was just about to
minerals
say.
and things like that.
So just explain to me this hatchery, because like I've walked and I've toured some hatcheries and I've seen where they had these clear cylinders, and they would have it at each of the different stages. Can you explain? And when I got there, when we walked your property, we saw how you manufactured this hatchery, which seriously, it's like ingenuity on steroids here. You can't appreciate
equipment that
it.
you need. It's not something that you can go find.
Exactly.
You have to make it.
And you did. You guys, your reservation, you and the people who I don't know who else helped you in this, just made this. How do I say this? It's huge. It's incredible to see. And I'm like looking at him going, no way. Like, this is the real deal. Like, so explain how you got into that hatchery and started this.
Okay. So back in the early 70s, the federal government had a program that they called the Native American Self-Determination Program. And the federal government funded a program, and what they would do is they would go to different tribes all over the United States to find out their natural resources, where they were. A lot of tribes were on the plains or things like that. So agriculture. And a lot of tribes were on the shores, so aquaculture. So they set up salmon ranching programs on reservation, oyster farming, salmon ranching, things like that. So the federal government funded our tribe to send 4 people to an Indian school in Washington State, Lummi Indian School in Bellingham, Washington, to go into a Native American aquaculture program. So they went there to study oyster farming, salmon ranching. And their reservation, their program, it was incredible. They built huge dikes out into Lummi Bay, where they had a huge salmon ranch.
Really?
400 or 500 acres big. It was incredible. Trout farming, they spawn trout, they spawn oysters, all varieties of salmon, pig salmon, Atlantic salmon. It was incredible.
I wonder how much is still there. That would be an interesting.
I haven't been back there since. That was maybe 79 when I went there.
I hear Barone Productions and Long Island Shucking Truck and the Shinnecocks might be taking a cross-country trip to see what's going on there. It could be quite an adventure. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know,
we kind of toyed with the idea of starting an Atlantic salmon run, like establishing a natural salmon run, because the Atlantic salmon run used to go up Peconic River.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
I didn't even know the Atlantic salmon was even close to this.
Oh yeah, Atlantic salmon was
big here.
Oh yeah.
Wow, that would have been really that's a really interesting when you think about it.
Yeah, Atlantic salmon, Hudson River.
Yeah, the Hudson.
Right.
Yeah.
So
well, that's why I know a lot of the striped bass comes out and it breeds up north of
Atlantic
Albany.
salmon was all fished out. So.
And is that what really happened to it? Overfishing. That's pretty wild.
Like Shinnecock Bay. Now this is pre-Hurricane 38, I would imagine. Shinnecock Bay had a lot of oysters. 1800s, 1700s.
Well, one of the things that we do know is that the Hurricane of 38 really did change the landscape, the bay beds and the bay bottom.
Yeah.
Because a lot of things were brought in something known as a drill snail, and they would just feast on the oysters. And it really, I mean, the Long Island oyster was, they said, I wasn't there, that you could really walk across the Great South Bay and the Blue Point and never step foot on the sandy bottom.
I grew the oysters on my farm to that point. And because the way that I grew it, I grew them to be about maybe an inch big. And then I would take them out of the bag and I'd spread them all over the bottom. And we just go back, check now and then. But it was like that on Shinnecock Bay, where the part of Shinnecock Bay I had, it was covered. I went out there one time and I just took a clam rake and I raked the whole rake. It was overflowing.
With oysters.
With oysters.
With the ones that you farmed that you just kind of transplanted.
I just planted them right on the bottom, just threw them.
Wow.
And I looked and I'm like, and I started to think, I can't do this by myself. There was so many. It looked like a road. And at first I thought it was just like rocks on the bottom. I thought it was rocks. And I went, oh, whoa, this is oysters.
What did I do?
Yeah, what did I do? I had like $750,000. I'm like, okay, I got to get a bunch of guys to come out here and help me harvest this, because I didn't want them to get too big to where, people didn't want them.
Right. Well, there is a place for really big oysters, right? Like
I found out.
Did you?
Yeah.
Really?
The Grand Central Oyster Bar. I used to sell to them, and then it got to where I only had like these dinner plate oysters.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? I don't know if he's going to take them. I took like a bag of them in one time, maybe like 50 that was in a bag, 50 or 100. And I had the rest that were cocktail. And I said, I don't know if you want these. He goes, no, I'll take them. Okay. So it got to where he was calling me that he wanted these big oysters. Like, okay. So, and I started bringing them in, selling them. And I was wondering what he was doing with them. So one of my guys went into his oyster bar and sat down at the counter, and he's looking up there, and it was a poor boy sandwich. And it was a roll, and it was the oyster on it.
The big oyster.
Yeah, so he was using those big oysters for poor boy sandwiches.
And I'll be honest with you, I know for a fact Louisiana, where the poor boys are really originated from, it's really just like a hot sauce or malade sauce, and you put it on a roll, but they're a pain in the neck to bread. You've got to flour, you got to bread them.
Yeah.
So if you can get a big oyster,
you only need like one or two
on a piece of bread, and then you get you get the taste of oyster with everything else. That's a brilliant idea.
Dinner plate, they were
so you found the market for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So now he wants them all the time.
Yeah.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: what do you think about you going back and now knowing what you know about oysters? I don't want to say as a regret, but I think sometimes when we leave a project, sometimes we circle back. We come back to this.
And that came when you showed up at my store.
Really?
I've been thinking about it ever since you came, and we went down there to where I had my grow out system and stuff. And
the foundation's still there, right?
Man,
the roots are there. It's there.
And then the stories that that I was talking to you about is my daughter and I. When was this? This must have been 2000. I'm going to say 2009, maybe. She was on spring break. So we went to Japan for spring break, on her spring break. And one of my friends used to be an investment banker there, and he had been there for years. And he spoke Japanese fluently. Big Irish guy, too. And it was something. And his daughter's the same age as my daughter. So we went there. And when I got there and he started speaking, some of the Japanese people, they were like, You sound just like oh, you couldn't even if you had closed your eyes and you listened to him, it sounded like an old Japanese man. It was like,
And all of a sudden,
big Irish guy's got this blonde, reddish blonde hair, big beard, and he's like 6'3", you know?
oh my God, that's
yeah,
great.
240 pounds.
Turns a couple of heads.
Yeah, like what? But he had a friend who was in the promotional industry. He ran a big promotional company in Japan, and they set up a PowerPoint meeting with my daughter and I, because he knew that we had an oyster farm that, you know, I grew oysters. And so there at this meeting, he had a video going, and he was showing some powwows, a Gather Nation powwow, big powwow that we have here in the Americas. It's out west in New Mexico, huge powwow. And he was showing videos of it. And he was talking about how in Japan, he says that our culture is very similar. They have the same clan system that we have, like Bear Clan, Wolf Clan. You go, and then he started showing us some of the videos of their traditional, you know, traditions. And we're looking, and they have the same hand drum, and they're singing. We're like, my daughter and I we're like, wow. Even some of the words were the same, and it's like,
wait, so
it was like,
I got to interrupt. So what you're explaining to me is that the people in Japan have very similar. If I mean, granted, we have a whole Pacific Ocean that might, but very similar traditions of ancestral rituals, right?
Correct.
We're talking theoretically pre-Columbus,
right?
That
Same
you have
clan system that we have.
So obviously,
it was just, you know, it was one of those moments where you're like, wow.
And how to blow your mind.
Yeah. Oh man, it did.
But think about how did that happen, right? Like we talk about traditional history,
yeah,
right? We were isolated. You guys, right? Nobody knew you. Columbus was sailing along, poof, and hit it. And now all of a sudden, as we start to realize that there is a pre-Columbus history that we're still unaware of, but there's some.
See, and the thing about it is that that brings me to. We have to realize that we're all related. We have to start thinking that the world is a big family. So you got to have a mindset that it's like that. Yeah. And that's how I look at it, you know. So when we were there in this meeting, the idea was that I had that we wanted to bring some drumming and singing groups and dancers from our tribes here and go to Japan. His idea was to bring them and to have a Shinnecock Powwow Oyster Festival in Tokyo Park.
Oh my God, would that not be exciting?
Oh my God, man, I tell you, when he started presenting his idea, and then he said, if we bring the Shinnecock oysters in, he said, there's only one company in Japan that's allowed to import oysters into Japan. He said, I spoke to them already. So he put a whole PowerPoint. He said they would go north to where their company is, and where they have this bay. They would go there to quarantine for so many weeks. He said, then they moved down into, and I was like, wow. He says, and I spoke to some sake and beer companies that would promote the festival.
That would be epic.
Right.
That would be epic.
It would. And then he said, we'd start out with like, we'd do like 2 million oysters. I said, oh, wow, 2 million oysters a year. I said, that's pretty good. He goes, oh, no, a month. We'd start with 2 million oysters a month. And that's what I said. I went, and I was like, wow. I said, that's a really nice dream.
But you're not making that up by yourself out there. You'd be out there morning, noon, and night. You'd be sleeping on the rake out there. Are you kidding me?
Oh, man, when I went out there that time and I had like, $500,000, $750,000 oysters out there, and I'm by myself. I'm like, wow, how am I gonna do this? And he's talking about 2 million a month. I'm like,
At least it's a dream.
yeah,
At least it's a dream.
yeah.
And if the ancestors want it, then it should be.
Hey, that's.
I just want to say real quick, the quarantining of oysters, a lot of places you can't import and export without like a quarantine, even not, believe it or not, Hawaii. Like when you go to Hawaii and you want to bring a dog to Hawaii, the dog really, I think, goes in for 180 days to make sure it's not bringing parasites, tapeworms. It's the reason why you can't bring certain, or it has to be approved product. Like you just can't stick a banana that you would take from Honduras and stick in your pocket and bring it in here. It has to clear customs, or you can't take it. It has to be U.S. friendly. So you don't have this invasive species take hold. So that's one of the things that would have to happen with the oysters. But that's a really, that would have been amazing. Could you, the cultural things that could have come out of the comparisons.
It was something. And come to find out that they have wampum that they sell over there in Japan in the stores. I'm like, wow.
Is it wampum from?
Yeah, from. There's still individual tribes, people in the tribe that go, they get the clamshell and they make it.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people on my reservation are wampum makers. You got some in Wampanoag, Narragansett, who are wampum makers down in Cherokee, North Carolina. A lot of wampum makers.
And they all take your clams.
Yeah, they trade a lot. And a lot of guys from our res, what they do. So like when you get that clam, I don't even know if I should be saying
No.
Leave
the secret as is.
Yeah,
guess what? We got to build a
you don't know how much money just taking that clam and just cutting it and putting a hole and sliding it onto a string. As long as that purple's on there, you get a string this long, how much they pay for that.
Really? Well, listen, you know what? Your reservation deserves to make the money and the proceeds and the profits because it's your currency.
And come to find out, my nephew comes to me one day, this maybe 6-7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, I can't, somewhere around there. He says, Uncle, he said, you ever heard of a wampum pearl? And I'm like, no. I said, it's a mollusk clam. I said, it would stand to reason that they would make a pearl. So he pulled up on his phone and he showed me this wampum pearl. I said, wow, really? I said, that's real? He goes, yeah. He said, this lady bought a brooch at a yard sale for like 40 or 50 bucks, something like that. And she knew that this was like a pearl or something. So she went to a trade show, a gem and pearl trade show. And she wanted to get, is this worth anything? And the pearl guys said that, well, in the pearl industry, they don't really consider clam pearls because their finish is more like a porcelain rather than like a high gloss mother of pearl. But they're so rare. He said that pearl is probably worth about maybe $250,000. Wow. So, being the entrepreneur mind that we are, how I think of being a native entrepreneur nowadays is an old warrior. That's how I look at it. And so we did some research on oyster pearl cultivation. So we found this woman in Hawaii who wrote a book on it, and we got in contact with her. And so we told her our history. We still make wampum on the reservation. We still make it. And one of my cousins found a wampum pearl because he was delivering the oysters for me to my distributor every week. We're going sometimes twice a week we're going. And I told him, I said, my nephew came to me and said, that man showed me this wampum pearl, and he's looking at me. He says, I have one. And I was like, no. He says, yeah. He said, matter of fact, he said, I'll show it to you. He said, and he told me how he got it. He said, on the reservation is a peninsula, so it's out in the bay. It's
right.
3 sides water. And our cemetery is on the west side in Shinnecock Bay side. And he said, I went there. He said, to go get some clams for dinner. He said, I went out there. He said, I might have been out there 20 minutes or so and got like, he said maybe 4 or 5 dozen or so.
Sure.
And he said, I came home. He said, I was opening. He said, and something hit my plate. He said, I thought it was a stone. And we're getting out his car and goes in, and he goes in the jar, pulls this thing out, and drops this wampum pearl in my hand as big as my thumbnail. And it was this deep purple. And then towards the bottom of the sphere, it swirled around into violet like that. And then on the bottom, it went down into white. I was like, wow, this perfectly sphere, wow, heavy thing hit me. I was like, what? And he says, I took this to the jeweler. He said, and he sized it and weighed it, carat, everything like that. And he said, I'll give you $3,600 for it right now. He says, pulling the money out of his pocket right there. He said, I'll give you $3,600 for it right now. And I looked at him, and he was kind of excited. He said, no, he says, I want to keep it. He said, I want to make something for my wife. I said, $3,600? He goes, yeah, $3,600.
Oh, no.
And I said, you sure he didn't say 36,000 or 360? He goes, no, he said $3,600. I said, man, it's a good thing you didn't.
Yep. I bet you when you told the rest of the story, he nearly died.
Like, what?
Oh, my God. Wow.
So when we told this lady who's a oyster pearl cultivator the story, and then she goes, well, it would stand to reason that you could cultivate it. She says, I'll send you. She says, I'm going to send you the instructions. And then she sent the video actually, and she sent the, how to. She said, this is how we're going to test to see
if you can cultivate it.
Right, to see if you can cultivate it. So what we did is that we got Mediterranean sea salt, right?
You sure you want to share this?
Nah, maybe I won't.
It's another episode. You got
we'll
a lot. There's a lot of people right now. We need an episode 2 on this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's pretty interesting.
Man.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? I would never have thought that. Not in a million years.
And you want to know, it goes back to how the spirit works. This just comes to us. So it becomes like opportunities. If you want to do this, it's here.
Well, that goes back to us. Like our first meeting. Like, I don't want to say coincidences, but it was way too easy. You know what I'm saying? Like, it didn't just happen like, holy smokes, this was...
It's one of those things where it's not so much that it's a coincidence. You have to, it's more like, this is how the spirit talks to you, and these are the signs. And so you have to believe in it, and you have to believe in the sign. Oh no, this is a sign of the spirit communicating with you. So the spirit communicates these ways, and you got to be able to see the unseen. So it's kind of like that.
And everybody has it happen in their lives. And if they don't, they don't open their eyes, you miss what's being told. That
clarity hits you, and it might hit you just for a split second, and you know it, but then you question it. You're like, no, that's not, and you go on, but no.
In our
deeper than that.
In our conversation, you said something to me that was so profound. And, I hear, how do I say this? And we're not supposed to talk about politics or religion, but it was something that was really interesting that resonated with me, where you said that when you're in the womb, you prepare yourself for your physical life, right? And you did use the word like a rebirth, right? Like you're in the womb and you're born. You don't even understand. You don't that this is a whole world. That's all you know.
It's a different world than what we know.
Right? We don't know it. We don't know anything about it.
The Spirit tells us how this is how to look at this life that we're living, this physical life that we're living now. The Spirit says, look at it like this.
That's right.
This is a step. And the first step that you take is when you're a fetus in your mother's womb. That's a different world than you know right now. And in that world, you're developing tools, you're getting ready to be born into the next world. So you're developing those tools you're going to need for that next world. So hands and feet, eyes, heart, brain, muscles, skeleton, all these things that you need for that next world, you're getting ready to be born into.
That's right.
So when you're born, you died from that world you knew of the womb, and you're born into this one. When you die from this world and you're born into the next, it's a spirit world, and it's without the body. So your purpose now is to develop your spiritual tools you need for that next world.
And the nice thing is, I really think that's applicable to almost everything in religion. It's not one religion, right? Like I believe in Jesus, right? I got to believe in Jesus right now. Like Jesus is the one that's going to get me to that next world. Whatever the vehicle might be is not being questioned.
How we look at that is the Creator sent Jesus to tell you this is how to live, to prepare yourself for that next world.
And it fits.
Because that next world is eternity. See?
Yep.
And the Creator, or God, has many names. The all-knowing, the all-wise, the all-forgiving, the all-forgiver, the most great judge.
However you want to look at it.
The most great avenger. He's many, many names.
And it really goes back to what I think we try to teach our families. I use food, right? When we talked about this, it's for the love of family and food, right? Our families, what do we want to instill in our children? What do we want to instill in ourselves? And, when I was 20 years old, nobody would tell me anything different. Like nobody would ever say, Ralph, at 60 years old, you're going to be doing a podcast, sitting down with an elder from Shinnecock, talking about this. I never thought about this, right? Like I thought about something completely different. And now I find myself at a different station in life, a different position. Many, like a lot of the people that do hire the Long Island trucking truck, they're all around my age, right? I do get some 20, 25-year-olds, but it's completely different now. And my business is more of building a family and building a relationship and building something. Because like you said, we're all connected.
Yeah.
And we don't need the nonsense. We don't need the drama. We don't need the hate. We don't need the judgment. We just got to enjoy the present and prepare for tomorrow.
Right. And not only prepare for tomorrow, but prepare for that next world.
That's right.
And that's one of the things we don't talk about enough. And that's a lot of times with the children, when they grow up, society starts to get lost because we lose that teaching or that guidance. And being a parent, that's what I found out, that my biggest thing is to guide my children to their true father, which is the Creator. Guide them to it. I can't make you do anything, but I can give you the tools and guide you.
That's correct. And that's
to make your path. And the way indigenous people, how we look at it, metaphorically, it's like the Creator or God is like that freshwater lake in the middle of the forest. Every animal, every life has to drink from it. Now the bear takes his path and it makes his path to come drink. And the eagle makes his path to come drink. The butterfly makes their path, the insects, the other animals, all make their own path to drink from the same lake.
There's so many stories that are in my head right now. It's endless. And the beautiful thing is, like, I believe in exactly what you're saying. And what I like is I use the vehicle of cooking. Like, how do I guide the kids? We guide the kids through cooking, through recipes, through food, through a passion.
And being that example. And doing that is the example. Doing it, you become the example.
And you leave a legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really it. You guys.
Even just doing something is a teaching. You don't even know it. And maybe no words are even said, but you don't know how somebody is looking at you and what they're learning just by you being present and doing. When nobody else will.
It's funny that you said that, because I had a student just see me this year at the Gateway Haunted House in Bellport, and it's one of the best haunted houses in the country. And this kid turns around and he goes, "Vidge, is that really you?" And I go, "Yeah." And I remember the kid. I couldn't remember the name. It's the butter's slipping off my noodles here. And the kid comes up to me. He goes, "Vidge," he goes, "and I want to talk to you." Goes into the haunted house. He comes back out. He goes, "I recorded you." And I looked at him. He goes, "I did what you told me to do. I recorded you, and I did what you did." I listened to it, and I'm like, "Oh, this can't be good." I'm like, "Shit, I'm in trouble here." Like, I was I am out of my mind, but I can't imagine what this kid recorded. And he recorded me telling him how he should start a business. Every kid should start a business. And I gave him the foundations to build his own business. So he has a car accident. He has $500 left to his name, and he starts his own business. And he goes, "I listened to you tell me on my phone, on that recording, every day is inspiration." He goes, "I'm not rich." He goes, "You know what? I can pay my bills every single day." He goes, "I'm trying to get out of save money to build a house or buy a house." He goes, "I'm doing it all because of what you told me." And he goes, "Wow. What you told me is gospel." Right. And here's the funny thing. This sounds bad, right? And his name is Watana. I'll never forget it. I couldn't remember his name, but he remembered me. Mm-hmm. And that's what we mean by laying down that foundation, right? Yeah. Giving guidance. And we never know. We'll never know. And
who you're influencing and how it affects someone. You never know. So it's like, be on your P's and Q's when you're doing things, because you never know who's watching you and who's looking at you, who's gaining something from it. And like you say, what hit me was when you said, he says, "I'm not rich." And the Spirit gave us the definition of what true wealth and true poverty is. True wealth is being independent of everything material, these earthly things, except your relationship with the Creator or God. Except that. That's true wealth, when you're independent of all that.
That's pretty wild.
True poverty is when you don't understand it.
But we have a lifetime to learn that.
To learn.
And that's the whole point.
Right. And keep your heart open. Keep your heart and your mind open.
Don't judge.
No.
Well,
yeah, I try not to. I got to work on that.
We all do. You still got a few years left in you. Come on, we're going to be scooping oysters in no time. Well, listen, we probably ran over our time limit, but I got to be honest with you. To me, this is, this might seem kind of, we went all over the place today, but the bottom line is the underlining message that I think that John and I can both agree on is that we love family.
Yeah.
We love what we do. We see a higher purpose in whatever we do, that we should try to make everything better, not make it worse, right? Use the proper tone, use the proper tongue, use the proper thought, and continue to work hard. And I do believe that comes out of the kitchen, guys. I believe, like cooking that family recipe, getting together, not ordering DoorDash and let me make you a burger. It takes you 5 minutes to make an egg sandwich inside your house. Granted, you have to buy everything, but to sit there and just call it in, think about the time, the opportunity that you're missing to grow. and you as an adult or a parent to leave a foundation with your children and what that foundation means to that child 30 years down the road. John, is there any closing comments you'd like to share? You don't have to. I just
just this some words the Spirit gives us to live by. And the Spirit says, look at your neighbor with a bright and friendly face and be trustworthy of your neighbor's trust. You know, I kind of look at that. I take it deeper to where my enemy can trust me that I'll be truthful with him.
Doesn't have to be nice.
No.
But you say it in a nice manner, but you have to be truthful.
You got to be
That's
truthful.
Right. Well, listen, like I said, I'm so excited about this. I'm giddy. I can't wait to watch this. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We might end up breaking this up into 2 segments. I don't know. But for the most part, I want to thank you from the Long Island Trucking Truck. I want to thank John, the great nation of the Shinnecock people. I appreciate you opening your home and your reservation to me. It was an honor. And for you guys, remember, we can bring this. We can talk about this as I'm opening up Oysters for you. We're preparing another Mignonette. We're doing something like that. Again, thank you, Barone Productions. But to you guys, I appreciate the likes. I appreciate the thanks. I appreciate the comments. I didn't think this would be going in this direction, and I'm grateful. And it's all because of you guys. So please keep sharing. Thank you. And we'll see you on episode 5. Thanks, guys.